sweep the floor. 2/3 of all the field officers that faced America in the Pacific War were trained in America. Every field officer practically trained. Virginia Military Academy was the main trainer. Black men is not even there, even now. My main point is that by 1905, the Japanese had learned enough to take on a European nation. And when the Russians started messing with them, they started kicking butt. And they defeated them.
Right.
And this shocked Europe so much until they began to propagate something called the Yellow Danger. This is the beginning and the basis of anti-Asianism. Manifested itself in the stereotypes in the movies. A Japanese detective called Mr. Moto, Fu Manchu, Charlie Chan. And what do we have? Step infection. Their control over the movies. All of this is global white supremacy. Their control, their colonization of the Bible. They're sending down Sunday school lesson with all white angels. Every single thing that came out of the European mind was meant to facilitate his control over the world. He's got no hesitation about it, and he's got no apologies. You buying a hook, line, and sinker. You buying his concept. All religion is good when it is practiced good. All religion can be bad, but all religion that I know of is used for one people to control another people. Because they killed the spirituality in the religion itself. The missionaries were handmaidens of colonialism. And they still are. The African trained by the missionary began to react. So global white supremacy was manifesting itself in the commerce of the world of that day.
Nice.
The Caribbean islands now realize that while their independence, their emancipation came 30 years before Black America, their emancipation was a fake, and ours was a fake. And when you're boasting, all you're saying that my fakery came before your fakery. So many of them, the rebels, went back to the hills. The best example is uprising in Jamaica, 1865, in Moret Bay. George Gordon and that crowd. Now, in the United States, because of the pressure, we had produced the greatest line of intellects of any people living outside of Africa. The climate was cold in New England. You could only work a slave 6 months a year. So you begin to have slave carpenters, slave craftsmen. You would farm them out. You begin to develop industrial slaves. They made a little money on the side. They could buy their way out of indentury. It wasn't quite as difficult. They began to read, write, run newspapers. Frederick Douglass escaped into this group. Yet the concept of getting back to Africa was prevalent. 5,000 Africans in this country had fought with the British against American independence, an incident left out of history. After the British lost the war, they had to get rid of them. So the British sent them to Canada and to Nova Scotia. Global white supremacy is now manifesting itself in the failure to acknowledge that every American citizen is a citizen. If you're a citizen, you need no civil rights movement and no civil rights action. The fact that you need it proves that they have not acknowledged you as a citizen. In a nation of immigrants, we are the immigrants against our will. We are the only immigrants who were invited here. Right. The nature of the invitation will not be discussed here. They were anxious to get us here. We had an affirmative action program waiting for us. No unemployment. No pay either. We transformed this nation. My main point is that the first half of this 19th century, we were fighting against global white supremacy in the Back to Africa movement that had started during the American Revolution, the movement to settle Liberia, 1847, with Martin Delany and the Jamaican Campbell going out to what is now Nigeria to search for a place. All of this was a reaction against global white supremacy. A lady in Nigeria who had been in the slave trade discovered that she was not a labor contractor and her people were not returning. She began to fight against the slave trade. She began to fight against other Africans in the slave trade. Her name was Madame Tanabu. And when she continued her fight, not only to get out of it herself, but to fight everybody in trade. Her husband had died, and there was a man pursuing her hand. And she told this man, I cannot marry you now because I have men's work to do and I do not have time to be a woman. She fought every king in the slave trade. All right. And when she had removed the last king from his throne, she turned to the man pursuing her hand and said that, I am a woman now, I'll accept your offer. You think you're not rich? Look what a beautiful offer that was made. What a beautiful opera. There's so many things we in our life that we haven't converted. Be a beautiful children's story, be a beautiful adult story. Beautiful story of conversion, the story of Madame Tanabu. I can name you 100 of them now. I've done nothing but research. Don't get me wrong, I'll research the latest for other reasons too. But academic reasons as well. Now, early after we entered the 20th century, we were in a conflict over Booker T. Washington's theory, Du Bois, a conflict we never should have entered in the first place. Global white supremacy was manifesting itself in restrictions in the West Indies, in restrictions in Africa, in the continued petitioning of Africa and buying off or killing off all dissident elements. In this country, massive riots, 1906. Our reaction to Booker T. Washington's program of self-reliance, which is a form of nation building, a nation management. Those terrible years between 1900 and 1915, Africans progressing all over the world, in the Caribbean islands fighting for constitutional government and improving their own lot because they were a majority, but they still did not remove the private clubs in every island, but they had broken themselves down into clubs for brown people, clubs for almost white people, clubs for black people. We see Elijah James Beyond the Boundaries and his other works on the subject. You can understand it and read Rex Neverfort's work, Mirror, Mirror, and another work, Color and Race and Color in Caribbean Literature. The British had built in an army to some of the islands, especially in Barbados, by telling them that they were English. And they became as English as the English. And by enough infusion of blood in Jamaica, they would hold their hands because they're fighting their relatives. And yet there was a group fighting for constitutional government, consistently fighting for improvement. 1908, Marcus Garvey would make his tour of Central America. 1914, he would be in London studying under Duse Muhammad Ali. And in Duse Muhammad Ali's paper, he would read an editorial which was a quote from, of all things, a white black nationalist, Edmund Booth, who had grown disenchanted with other missionaries and went around Africa saying to the African, the white man can't be trusted. And when finally the African looked at him and asked him, can you be trusted? To his everlasting credit, he said no. And he proclaimed Africa for the Africans. Marcus Garvey read it and added the phrase, Africa for the Africans, those at home and those abroad. Right. Marcus Garvey and his entire movement was a result of reaction to global white supremacy. The African colonial movement was a result of it. The early church movement in the United States was a result of the fight against global white supremacy. We wanted to get back some of our African self. The Chief Sam movement in Oklahoma was as a result, Africans trying to escape global white supremacy. This story is told in a book called The Longest Way Home, the Chief Sam movement in Oklahoma. Many blacks sold their property and gathered different harbors, waiting for a ship to take them home to Africa. The Pap Singleton movement for resettlement in the United States. The Liberian movement continued. 1915, Booker T. Washington was dead. Du Bois moved to the center stage of leadership, replaced soon by the attention given to Marcus Garvey. The rise and fall of his movement has been told many times. There's an 8-volume book of documents edited by Professor Robert Hill on the life of Marcus Garvey. You can argue with Professor Hill's notes, you can argue with his introduction, you can argue with the fact that some of it seemed a little conservative, but you cannot argue with the fact that he has given us the greatest documentation on Marcus Garvey. Right.
ever, going through the archives and